Hey everybody, I'm Cole. That's my name. This is my channel. Welcome back. Um, it's been a minute since my last video. I did say before that I was trying to upload more videos on this channel, and I am sticking to that. I've had a lot of stuff going on in my own life that has kind of kept me from it a little bit, but I've had a nice break here for the holidays and whatnot to work on some stuff. So there's some stuff coming down the pipeline. So at the top of this video, before we get into the review, just a little bit of housekeeping. Tales from the Shelf, the podcast I do on this channel with my buddy Ethan, will be back this month. We're going to be doing Spider-Man Reign. So if you want to read along, this is the book we're doing this month for that show. Definitely stay tuned. It should be out in the next week or two because, it's a shorter one. And anybody who wants to read along, pick up a copy or source a copy and do that. I'm also starting a new podcast, kind of like a sister show to that with another buddy of mine. That'll be kind of a different concept, but we're going to be doing Batman: The Long Halloween, which is a book that I really, really love. One of my first kind of graphic novels ever, but I'll talk more about that in that video. And I'm working up to my first on this channel kind of non-comic related review, and that'll be this book, probably this book, Into the Buzzsaw. Really interesting book about journalism and the war on terror and stuff like that. It's definitely a departure from the other stuff I've done on the channel so far, but it's definitely something I want to talk about and get into. Definitely have some thoughts already, and it's really good so far. All that being said, today's video is about this book right here, The Witcher Ronin. And if you maybe perused my channel, I've definitely talked about The Witcher before. I did a reaction to the Witcher 4 trailer when I was streaming for a while. I played The Witcher 3 on my streams. I've played that game a bunch of times. I've beaten it 3 times, once on the hardest difficulty, which I will never do again. All that to say, I'm a huge fan of the series. I love the books. I've been kind of collecting the Dark Horse omnibuses for the comics, and I definitely want to do some videos on the stories in there. And they're actually, I recently saw they're doing the Witcher short stories from The Last Wish, which I have down there, but I'm not going to rip it out right now. They're taking all those short stories and making like comic adaptations of them, which is really cool. And that might give me an opportunity to like piece by piece go over them. And maybe we'll even do some kind of comparison thing. I have ideas for it, but we'll see. But this book was really intriguing to me because, I'm also a manga fan and I like that kind of stuff as well. And I was perusing comics on Amazon one day and I just saw this and I was like, The Witcher Ronin, that sounds really interesting. And I put it off for a while, picking it up. I got the first two Dark Horse Witcher omnibuses, and I was like, well, let me pick that up and check it out. It seemed pretty short, like a short little read. And then when I got it, I was so intrigued by it. I think like the day after I got it, I sped through the whole thing. And I planned to make this video before, but I had some things happen, so I had to push it off. But here we are. So this is The Witcher Ronin. This is a book, well, it's a manga published by Dark Horse by writer Rafat. I believe it's Rafat or Rafal. The typing kind of makes it confusing to me a little bit, but Rafal Jaki or Jaki, and art by Hataya. I don't, the names don't ring for me, but that's the crediting for this book of the main story and art. The letters Aditya Bidikar, and sorry if I'm butchering anybody's names. And the cover art was by Jen Bartel. And yeah, I didn't know that much about this. I did a little bit of research. Obviously, it was just kind of like a side project that Dark Horse, having the Witcher license for comics, kind of put into motion. And we'll get right into it. I'll talk about the story first. So the concept for this is what I would consider, like, if you're familiar with DC Comics or other comic book type stuff, like an Elseworlds, like something that has the familiar beats and characters of a series, but just takes it kind of in its own direction, in its own little world. At least for the most part, that's what I thought. It gets a little complicated towards the end, and we'll get into that. But essentially, the general story of this one is you're following Geralt, whatever version of Geralt this might be, in a very kind of like feudal Japan, fantasy Japan, medieval Japan kind of setting. He's the same Witcher just maybe with a little bit of a different outfit, and he's got katanas instead of longswords. And it's very classic if you're a fan of the series. It definitely, if you're a fan of The Witcher 3 and like that kind of more modern styling of the series, it's gonna ring very like uh it's gonna rhyme for you, at least in like a lot of the story beats. He's encountering a lot of humans at like inns and towns, and they think he's a freak. They don't like him around, but there's always one or two people who want to hire him and want his help. And essentially, the first two chapters, because it's like 4 issues, 4 chapters. The first 2 chapters, he's kind of just venturing. He's searching for somebody, which we assume to be Ciri, And he's also searching for this villain, this female villain who can like make it snow. She's like a snow demon woman. But the first two kind of chapters are just him traveling through these towns trying to catch leads and figure things out. And in each he fights and finds monsters and whatnot. There's a really cool like water serpent. See if I can find more of a page spread for the water serpent. There's a really cool like water serpent, and I'll try and put some stuff on the screen where I can. But essentially, yeah, it starts off really strong with like a classic Witcher style adventure. You get to see Geralt. I think one of the best things about this is you get to see him fighting monsters that he wouldn't normally, right? Because it's all like Japanese mythology inspired. And actually, in the back of the book, they have like a little bestiary compendium of like all the creatures that you get to see and like the where they come from in Japanese folklore, which I thought was super cool, really awesome, like to read. And then when we get to the back half of the book and it starts to get more into the main overarching plot of this story, I think it starts to fall apart a little bit more, because my personal hope was that they kept it more of its own story and didn't connect it so much to the true story of The Witcher. Because once we get into the ending here, it kind of gets revealed that the main villain is someone from the Witcher franchise, which you'll know if you're a fan of the series. And we also get to see some other Witcher characters appear towards the end, and it almost tries to tie it into like the main Witcher universe. Like this is just another adventure in the main universe, which I personally found kind of hurt the book, and I find it almost a little like lacking taste, because I think being its own separate thing, which it could still be, it gets a little confusing as to what they're trying to say at the end, but it could still be. But I think that hurt it a lot for me, because it should stay separate, stay its own kind of little microcosm. And maybe that was originally the plan, and maybe some kind of editorial decisions might have changed that. Who can know? But on the whole, I think it's a fun little adventure, and it's interesting if you're a fan of the series. And talking about the art is, I'm mixed on it. It's complicated. I think the depiction of action and the way that all the designs look is really good, but I think sometimes the art is a little. I I have a hard time criticizing art because I don't want to say, because it's very much up to the eye of the beholder and taste. But I think there's just some things that are like the style hurts some of the action at times and makes it a little bit confusing. And it's a little bit inconsistent because some stuff is really, really wonderful and some stuff seems a little lacking in detail or kind of out of place, if that makes sense. But for the most part, I think it holds its own, and at least the style is consistent through the whole book, which it would have been much more jarring if it wasn't. They also add a little sidekick for Geralt. This is a little bit of a spoiler, but there's this little cat creature that shows up that can like throw kunai and stuff, or throw like ninja stars, and I thought that was a lot of fun. I think that's a fun little sidekick for Geralt to have in this specific universe, and yes, you see some Witcher characters there towards the end. But on the whole, I would say I don't know if I can recommend this to someone who's not already a fan of the series. And I think that's where this really falls and where its faults really start to show, is that without your back knowledge of the Witcher franchise, this is not going to be as interesting to you. It's almost going to be kind of almost a waste, because they start to rely, as the story goes on, more and more heavily on the established lore of The Witcher. And I think that hurts this a lot. I was also reading into this. Unfortunately, this has been out for some time, and there was plans, they even say it in the book, I believe, plans for a sequel, or not a sequel, but like a continuation, like another volume. And it seems that that might not be happening, because it seems like it's been on hold for some time. I would actually love to see what the next volume of this would be, because I'm very interested to see where it goes, and also some more explanation of if this is supposed to be in the Witcher universe proper or its own story. That's what I really want to know, and I think it might just always be left up for interpretation if we don't get any sequel to this. And that's kind of why I wanted to make a video about it too, because even with my slight hangups about it, I still think I would love, as a fan of the franchise and the series, to see more of this, more stuff like this, and more of this specifically. But my baseline review, my recommendation comes down to, if you're a fan of the series, and even more specifically, maybe if you're a fan of the Witcher books and comics, pick this up, check it out. I think it's a decent read in that context. But if you are not as familiar with the series, or you're just trying to get into it, this is not a good entry point. I would say maybe even pick up one of the Dark Horse omnibuses, like the first one, and read some of those Witcher comics first. Or read the Witcher books, read The Last Wish, and Blood of Elves, and some of the series. Or play the games and get some of the backstory, all of that. I guess it kind of makes sense. I don't need to ramble about it too much. But my number review, I would say because of all the hang-ups and things surrounding this, I'm only going to give this, I'm going to give this a 5.5, which I think is the lowest score I've ever given on the channel so far. That's not to say it's bad. That's a C, you know, or maybe like a C plus. So I would say cautiously recommend to fans of the series, and I would love to see more of this. And yeah, that's about it for me with this today. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thanks for sticking around. For anybody who did, thanks for showing up. If you enjoyed the channel, like I said, there's more stuff coming. Got lots of plans. Hoping to upload a little more consistently. Sorry, going into this year. And yeah, please leave a like, comment, subscribe, and thank you. Peace.